Thanks, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. By the way, one of my inspirations to join the crypto space was this guy there, Bart. I was one of his, he was an instructor of me on the eCrypt summer schools back in Samos and Crete, 2007 and 8 or something. It was, too long ago. But imagine in a small country like Greece, myself and Fotini, probably you know Fotini as well, we were the only students from the northern part of Greece that eventually we ended up into cryptography. So thank you. After that, it was like a very interesting journey. By the way, we did some great work around the protection of blockchains, around all of these attacks that we're expecting to happen in the next few years or decades. But it's not only that, as you will realize, the main problem here is regulation sometimes. And because we have the NSA and a few other organizations starting to the transition between ECDSA, DDSA, RSA into the post-quantum era, the blockchains have to follow as well. So in one sense, there is a threat. On the other side, you cannot work, and now that they are more legitimate in the sense that the Trump administrator made it a bit more of a regular asset to have in the US, which somehow exploded across the world. Obviously, you have to do with banks, you have to do with governments now and blockchains. You cannot not go along with the recommendations of the agencies. And I guess ENISA as well and the European Union also has some recommendations for 2030, 2035 and transitioning. So blockchains have to adapt as well, even if there is no threat in the next 5-10 years. Now, regarding my profile, very quickly, I was one of the people that co-designed the Libra project for Facebook. As you know, back in the days, Facebook on 2018, they started to 2016, 2017. They started eventually 2019 was the date that I personally joined. And Facebook hired a lot of cryptographers across the world because they wanted obviously to get away of Visa and MasterCard that always take this 3%, 4%, which is creating a small problem for a company like Facebook. Right? As you can imagine, all of the ad industry is based on micropayments, and you don't want to have this. And at the same time, they also tried to create a stable coin, which failed dramatically for many reasons. One was regulation. The other, as part of the team, I would say, is also COVID, because it's very, very difficult in such an organization during the COVID era to go to different countries and convince them, oh, you have 30% dollar, 30% euro, 20% yen. We couldn't even travel back then. So because of all of this stuff, some of us, including George Danezis, who is also part of the cryptography community, we left Facebook. And then starting from R3 in the UK, the biggest consortium back then on a new DLT, more permissioned, then joining Facebook, and now SUI and Walrus, which is decentralized storage. We tried to build something new, personally as an auditor and hacker for Ethereum. We even created another language at Facebook, was called Move. All of the problems that we've seen in COBOL before it jumps into C, C++, and Java, the same thing we believed has happened into the crypto space. So you're going to see more programming languages coming into the Web3, just because this is a natural evolution of the events, right? And then I moved and I lived in all of the United countries in the world, European Union, United Kingdom, United States, United Arab Emirates. I don't think there is another United country anymore that I haven't been. But this helped me a lot to have pretty much a good view on what are the requirements on both zero knowledge, like privacy, but also the post-quantum settings across the world, because it's different. Here in Europe, we see things differently. We're a bit more conservative. At the same time, in the US, they're going into the limit sometimes, growth hacking. There is the Arab world where they are thinking completely different on how you are applying innovation. But here you're going to see how I personally viewed all of these problems and what we try to solve, because as I told you, there has to be a transition. The Ethereum Foundation is paying a lot of money now, and some researchers, I don't know if someone is here, they're getting some small incentives to invest on transition to post-quantum. Some on the Bitcoin protocol, they're also getting into that. I believe we do the same. We have a specialized team only for the post-quantum transition of SUI, but I believe it will be the case between 27 and 29 that you will see a lot of money coming into the blockchain. I believe millions to many, many millions, hundreds of millions, just for this quantum transition. And the biggest problem is Satoshi Nakamoto's addresses. because as you know, the public keys are exposed and it's not even hashed, which means that if this guy or this entity, whatever it is controlling, 10% of Bitcoin, the liquidity by stealing this money will be actually going up and down into the pricing sector, and obviously someone will become billionaire just because of this. That's why we believe that the blockchain entities will be probably the first target if there is a quantum attack. And as far as I know, very recently one VC is investing in companies that are going to invest in quantum computers as a first task to break cryptography in crypto. Because it's the easiest way to make money. And you are not harming anybody necessarily. For example, Satoshi addresses, they're pretty much sleeping there for all of these years, since 2009. So for 16 years, nobody actually touched this. We don't even know who is the owner. Now, when you go into the space, and if you work for a big organization like Facebook and Google, and because Google, as you know, they're also investing into L1s. I don't know if they're going to do post-quantum in the first day, but they are investing on all of these things, including Facebook. We had to work on all of this stuff that you see here. And as you can imagine, pretty much zero knowledge, post-quantum, MPC and fully homomorphic encryption are typically now the most demanding areas in all of the Silicon Valley companies and also crypto companies that are dealing with Web3. Personally, I started with ZK. We did a lot of MPC, mostly for decentralized randomness and threshold signatures and other things. But eventually, post-quantum is a thing that at least 3 or 4 blockchains that I told you have to focus in the next 2 years, but you cannot start in 2028. By 2030, it will be too late, right? Because then you will not be able to transact with the government. Because of all of this stuff, this is 2015 when I started personally joining the space, where I had people from Microsoft who worked in the quantum space at that moment, that they said, okay, look, the important date is 2031. It doesn't mean that it will be broken by 2031. This was literally like 10 years ago, right? I don't believe, personally, if you ask me, it will happen like in such a short time frame. But this was the narrative back then, like in 15 years, 20 years, everybody has to switch. Now, if we see the evolution of the quantum computers, I know there are some other presentations here, it's not evident that it will happen in such a short time frame, especially for even Grover's algorithm with hash functions. We don't believe it will happen. But ECDSA gradually will be even the easiest target, and mostly because it's easier in the quantum settings to be broken compared to RSA. Because RSA has larger keys, and even if like the cryptography is not exactly the same, obviously we can do isomorphism between all of these two groups, but eventually elliptic curve keys are smaller, so you need less gates to actually break it. Now, there were a few proposals in the past to make the casual cryptography, the traditional cryptography we have, into like the post-quantum settings. The first one was, let's use RSA. This was from Daniel Bernstein, by the way. Let's use RSA, but create huge keys, like 1 terabyte keys. And you can use, there is a system where you're using 4,000, I think, bits of keys that you can expand them somehow, where you can have eventually a 1 terabyte key, that this one will be the next evolution of post-quantum settings. Obviously, these are not applicable for the blockchain, right? This is a huge key. Even if we can do it with the casual hard disk that we have, in other things, in the blockchain, it's impossible. The only other thing that I'm personally aware that is actually very close to that stuff is how we can make EDDSA compatible with post-quantum. Because all of the modern blockchains, people don't know it, but Bitcoin started with RIPE-MD, SHA-256, and ECDSA. We have one of the creators of the hash function right here. And at the same time, the new modern protocols like SUI, Aptos, Avalanche, Solana, and a few others, they switched to EDDSA. So this transition happened in the last 5-6 years. And someone is asking, why did they do it, right? There are a few reasons that they did it. One of them is because EDDSA is deterministic. You don't necessarily need randomness when you are signing a transaction. Because everybody can have like a malicious or some non-secure randomness generator, and obviously at the time of signing, someone can extract your keys. And because a lot of people are getting pretty much like clones of software to do that stuff, maybe the randomness matches someone else who is running the same software in a different place. if the bootstrap of the computer was pretty much the same. So EDDSA was selected, which means that modern blockchain are using this, but Ethereum and Bitcoin doesn't. And then we said, okay, ECDSA, we haven't found a good way to protect it against quantum. Is there a way that we can do it on EDDSA? Even if it's very, very close technologically, there was a small detail that we managed to use to make it post-quantum ready. And this is the paper, by the way. It's accepted also on CCS, ACM this year. And we're submitting the extension to FC. Now, this is the whole story. Everything until today was I want to generate keys. I go to some random generator and I want to produce some bits, and these bits are typically my keys. This was always the case for RSA, for ECDSA, for EDDSA, for everybody. Any scheme, even the post-quantum ones, even if you do Falcon, even if you do anything related to lattices, people are typically sampling from a random generator. But Bernstein, Daniel, had a crazy idea. Instead of using the private key directly, the bytes from the randomness as a private key, after sampling, then you hash the element here, and this is your private key now. So the output of the hash of the random sampling is your private key. And here, someone who knows about what is difficult to be broken with quantum computers, they will understand how we can transition. Because this trick, this small difference between how we're generating public keys and private keys, allows us to have a PQ-ready system here on EDDSA. Why? Can you understand why this is happening? Why this detail actually allows us to have EDDSA being post-quantum ready? Because from now on, you don't necessarily need to sign with this private key that we typically do, right? With ECDSA and EDDSA. What you can do is you can prove in zero knowledge that you know a seed that goes to your private key. But this SATU 512 is not breakable by quantum computers. So technically, we go one step above the private key of elliptic curves, and we prove in zero knowledge that we know something, and we have to have a zero knowledge proof that is post-quantum secure, which is Starks and the Hero today, right? And this is how we managed to make EDDSA quantum ready. Now, I'm splitting this design into, like on the left side, on the right side, right for you here. Typically, all of the wallets, if you have a crypto wallet, you have a mnemonic. You have 12 words that these words are hashed into creating a seed for the ECDSA key, and you are signing Bitcoin and Ethereum transactions. This is very common. As you will realize, Ethereum and Bitcoin are using this side. Solana and Sui, they are using this side. And there is a small difference again, because someone can say, Kostas, why do you need to go to the ECDSA key or EDDSA private key generation? Go to proving that you know the mnemonic of a private key. Because technically we can do that because there is some hashing happening. But as you can see, the hashes first, these are like 48 hash invocations. That would be very expensive in a zero knowledge proof circuit. So even if you do it, then there are some other problems. Okay, so this is the difference between EDDSA and ECDSA. Then there are some other problems on the second part, because in crypto wallets, we typically do hierarchical key derivation. So you're creating the parent key, and then this parent key can create other child keys, and so on. But the problem with child keys is, in ECDSA, they are created with a private scalar. This is an ECDSA private key. While on EDDSA, you are following against, again, the hash invocation over the private key and so on. Which means that the child key is not revealing anything about the parent key, and the parent key cannot actually be used. If you crack a parent account, you cannot crack a child key. Which means that EDDSA at the moment, it's the only system in the world that you can apply post-quantum zero knowledge on top of this and make it post-quantum ready by one day pressing a button on Sui or Solana or all of these blocks, Avalanche, I think, and make it from now on requiring a zero knowledge proof to sign transactions, and you never sign again with ECDSA and EDDSA. What is the big benefit of this? Do you know? You are not requiring to change your address. All of the other systems that we know is from now on, we're implementing Falcon. Let's assume that Bitcoin is doing that, which means that all of the previous accounts are doomed. What do we do with the previous accounts? What are we doing with people who lost their keys? What are we doing with people who are still sleeping, right? They never move their funds. What are we doing with custodians that they're using pre-signed transactions and they don't even have the private key. They cannot do anything. Right? So EDDSA is the only way at the moment to have post-quantum readiness to support the previous users as well that they were never post-quantum. Now, in my opinion, the cryptography field in general should switch mentality, and even if we have lattice-based cryptography, I will even send a message to NSA for this, and NIST. I'm already contributing in many situations for many designs that they should do that. We don't know what will happen with Falcon as well.
They already allowed some of these.
They
added seed-based.
They do allow?
Yeah.
What?
They amended during the draft. They amended Flips 2 or 3 to draft to allow seed-based.
Okay. So this is why, right? Because this is required to be able to have zero-knowledge post-quantum in case Falcon is broken in the future.
That's not the reason.
Yes, but this is one of the ways that we should do it from now on. Everybody who is constructing a new system in cryptography, technically we have to do this trick because we know at the moment we cannot avoid hash functions. Right? If hash functions are broken, we're doomed anyway. So technically, even lattices, they rely on hash functions as well because technically you're assigning a hash over the lattice. So ideally, you needed only hash function-based systems. It's Sphinx, but Sphinx is quite expensive. If you do lattices and you don't have all of this generation from a seed, then eventually you are doomed. If Falcon has a problem in the future, game over. But if you do that, maybe you have a way to escape and then go back to hash functions. So I'm finishing here. If I can add 2 or 3 minutes, just a quick demo of how this works, and Maddie can come and present very quickly.
So thank you, Kostas. So I think the $1 million question right now is how we want to build it. Okay, so this is extremely fancy. It's very neat and it's very nice. As you might already know, so the main feature that we would like to have, as already Kostas mentioned, the ZK that we want to use for proving this statement should be post-quantum for sure. Otherwise, the adversary who has access to a quantum computer can easily break it. The second part is it should enable client-side proving. Why? Because all the wallets are either on the browser or in the mobile phone. You cannot outsource the proof generation because it's extremely critical. You cannot share your seed with someone else in a server. And the third one, it should be memory efficient. Otherwise, your browser is going to be completely broken. So very, very briefly, as you know, there are a lot of, some existing post-quantum NISIC that there is a list, and there was also a benchmarking for this relation for pay to your hash of your public key, which is a common protocol in Bitcoin. As you can see, Ligero is somehow is in a very great position compared to the existing schemes. And another reason that we find ourselves really confident was that Google also recently used Ligero for identity systems, and then we essentially realized that this can be a good terms. Just please bear with me that whenever we are reducing the proving time, there is a consequence of increasing the verification time and the proof size, which is one of the bottlenecks that currently we are just trying to solve it. Very briefly, the circuit and the relation that is being proven in the rest of my demo is in this dash box, which is in red. As you can see that we receive a seed from Slosh. A Slosh is wallet for Sui. At the moment, we only support Sui, but it's not limited. As already Kostas mentioned, this can be used for Aptos, for Solana, for other chains that they are using EDDSA. And then we have also the signature that signing process can happen outside the circuit for sure. And this is the critical part that we came up with. We are using emulation, okay? So we emulate the ED because now we need to prove some relation in ED25519 curve, which is not ZK friendly, okay? So it's not ZK friendly, it doesn't provide enough roots of unity. And if you want to run Ligero, that requires a lot of multiplication, polynomial interpolation, then it's not going to work. And you need to spend a lot of time for proof generation. So I switch to my laptop now, because it's a demo time. Okay, super cool. To give you some insight, I also opened the inspect and also dev mode for the for the browser to make sure that everything is happening. First of all, I have a Slosh. And also, I created this account this morning and I'm going to delete it afterwards. So I'm sharing some secret information with you, but don't try to break it because this account is not active. So the first thing that I have to do is I have to connect my wallet, which right now we have a slush in the list. And now, because I already had a session open with my wallet, I didn't need to go to the wallet to confirm this validation. And you can see the balance in the testnet. Everything is happening in the testnet. So for running this, I need an address. And I already prepared an address, which is a valid address for SUI. And I need to mention that how much I want to send. And the next thing that I need right now, it's not going to happen in the user side for a product ready part, but I need to have access to the seed. If you remember, Kostas was mentioning that you need to show the proof of knowledge of a seed. Thanks to Slush, it provides us, it's as a part of the wallet, and you can copy this. We need this part for proof generation. You paste it, and once you press, you need to confirm on your wallet, okay? So there is a pop-up that comes, and once you approve, I just want to show you that what is happening behind the scene. I just zoom in a little bit. No. Okay, I hope that you can see. So we have the secret key, which is the seed that was already described. And now we have also the transaction details, because the message is also very important to be ported. And after a few seconds, the circuit still has a lot of rooms for optimization. This is the reason that it took some seconds, but it's client-side. It is the most important part. And the proof size, unfortunately, is also huge. This is one of the bottlenecks that we are facing right now, because blockchains are extremely fancy computers, and you cannot port megabytes of data. And for your reference, right now the proof size is around 4 megabytes, but we can reduce it further. And we started somehow we are in the half round. And in the next round, we are going to deploy it on a SUI and have this transaction and this validation on chain. That's the end of my demo. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.